We're often told a simple story. Get more money and you'll have power. You'll earn respect, find freedom, and everyone will look up to you. But this story is missing a huge part of the truth. It's the first misunderstanding. Think of money like water. It's a resource everyone needs to live, to grow, to build. Having a lot of water in a bucket makes you seem rich. But what if you don't control the source of that water? What if you can't decide where it flows, or if it floods, or if someone else can just turn off your tap? Machiavelli didn't care about how much water someone had in their bucket. He cared about who controlled the dam. He saw money not just as a pile of gold, but as a silent force, a psychological tool that changes people. Most people chase money, thinking it's the finish line, but Machiavelli knew it was just the beginning of a different game. If you don't understand this, money won't free you. It will trap you, even if you feel successful. Most of us spend our lives chasing more water, a bigger bucket, a faster fill. We climb the ladder thinking we're gaining control, but we don't realize that ladder was built by someone else, someone who controls its height, its rewards, and its hidden traps. The old wisdom says, true wealth is not in having much, but in needing little. But today, many of us just want more excitement, more applause, more attention. We call it freedom. But Machiavelli saw a deeper truth. If you need a huge bucket of water to feel powerful, you're already controlled by the need for water. Real power isn't proven by how much you gather. It's shown by how little you change when you suddenly have it all. Chapter 1. Money, the true mirror, not the source of strength. Watch closely when someone gets a sudden flood of money, an unexpected inheritance, a big raise, a lucky break. What happens? Often, they become loud, reckless, full of themselves. Why? Because they weren't ready for that much water. The money didn't make them stronger, it just showed everyone who they really were underneath. It unmasked them. As a wise modern thinker, Jordan Peterson once put it, if you think tough men are dangerous, wait until you see what weak men will do when they think they're strong. That's what a sudden rush of money does to someone who hasn't prepared. It turns a wish into who they think they are. They start acting out the illusion. So, here's Machiavelli's key lesson. Don't chase money just to show off. Instead, focus on building the inner qualities that earn respect without saying a word. Self-control, clear thinking, and being a bit unpredictable in a smart way. When you have these inner strengths, money will flow to you naturally, like water seeking its own level. It won't be a noisy struggle. It will feel like a quiet, strong pull. If you're finding this deep dive into influence eye-opening, then you're ready to truly level up. Hit that like button now and subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss any future insights. Your journey to mastering unseen power starts here. Chapter 2. The Power of the Hidden Reservoir. This brings us to a crucial second idea, one that many in today's world often ignore. Showing off your water makes you vulnerable. You see it everywhere. The fancy watches, the fast cars, the constant need to say, "Look at my huge bucket of water." It often screams insecurity, even when it pretends to be confidence. Machiavelli would have seen this as a rookie mistake, because the moment you show how much water you have, you also show where you might be weak. People start guessing your true reserves. They look for ways to tap into your supply. They might even plan how to take it. That's why smart people keep their reserves hidden, not because they're scared, but because it's a powerful strategy. An old saying goes, "The richest person is the one with few desires," but the Machiavellian adds, "The safest person is the one who shows very little." Let people wonder how much water you really control. Let them think your bucket is nearly empty, even as you're quietly managing a vast hidden reservoir that supplies the entire town. The less they know, the more they guess. The more they guess, the more they respect your unseen strength. And the more they underestimate you, the more power you hold when you choose to act. This is how true masters build their influence in silence, not by telling everyone about their gold, but by hiding the true depth of their reach. Their power moves like a shadow, quiet, precise, and impossible to deny. They never show the full size of their supply, and that's exactly why no one can break into it. Chapter 3. Build your own dam. Control the flow, not just the bucket. But even secrecy has its limits. This leads us to the third vital rule. Never depend on a water source you don't control. This is where many people lose the game without even realizing they're playing it. They get water, but they don't own the spring. They receive a regular flow, but they haven't built the pipes or the dam. They think a steady income means freedom, but their entire life supply can dry up with one bad decision from a boss, a market change, or a shift in how systems work. Machiavelli feared being dependent more than being poor, because a person who constantly needs someone else's approval for their water supply will often give up their true self just to stay comfortable. They'll hold back their real thoughts. They'll say yes when they mean no. They'll put on a happy face even when they're miserable inside. Not because they're weak at heart, but because the system has taught them to obey for survival. So, the Machiavellian doesn't chase public approval. They build their own dams and irrigation systems, steady, quiet ways for water to flow that no one can easily disrupt. They build assets that generate their own supply, structures that work even without being in the spotlight. They don't want to be famous, they want to be essential to the flow. Because once others start depending on your system for their water, you don't need to tell them what to do. They'll adjust voluntarily, not out of love, but because they fear running dry without your reliable structure. Chapter 4. Money, the ultimate loyalty test. And that's the first crack in the illusion that money automatically sets you free. No, it ties you into the system until you learn how to redesign the system itself. If these truths feel a bit challenging, that's a good sign. This channel is for those ready to unlearn the easy lies. Because what happens when your bucket overflows and you start to see how others react to it? That's where the real test begins. The common belief is that more water makes people admire you, but the brutal reality is, it just shows you who is pretending. When your reservoir grows, you start to notice the small cracks in relationships. People you thought were friends start to change. Their smiles seem a little forced. Their praise feels a bit calculated. And deep in their eyes, you might see something old and sharp. Envy. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because your overflowing supply reminds them of what they haven't achieved. A great philosopher, Nietzsche, observed, "When you look into an abyss, the abyss also looks into you. But when you rise with more, it's not the abyss that looks back. It's everyone who needed you to stay at their level." This is the fourth key rule. Money, or its flow, is the most powerful test of loyalty ever created. Words are cheap, promises are free, but money introduces a real difference. It creates new possibilities. It awakens hidden desires. Give someone power over your water supply and watch their tone change. Offer them a small stream from your reservoir and see who acts entitled, who becomes quiet, and who tries to find a bigger pipe for themselves. The Machiavellian doesn't fear this test. They use it not to hurt, but to understand, because money isn't just a tool, it's a filter. You offer someone a chance not just to help them, but to see how they handle their own control. Do they stay humble, or do they swell with pride, acting like they built the whole system themselves? You give them a responsibility not because they've fully earned it, but because you want to see how quickly they forget where it came from. If they get too comfortable, you create a little distance. If they start plotting, you cut them off. But if they stay quiet, humble, and patient, then maybe, just maybe, they understand the true nature of the flow. This is the old strategy, hidden behind today's polite smiles. People might say they care about you, but often they only care about the version of you that doesn't challenge their own comfort or standing. Once you go beyond their expectations, you stop being their safe space. You become their competition. Another thinker, Schopenhauer, noted, "Almost all our troubles come from our relationships with other people." And wealth, more than anything else, brings this truth to light. It doesn't break real relationships. It simply reveals which ones were never truly strong to begin with. Chapter 5. Control the tap. Don't just have a full bucket. That brings us to the fifth crucial rule. The weak chase more water. The strong control the tap. Watch how the world divides itself. Most people chase after every drop of water. They fight for a bigger bucket. They beg for a steady stream. But the powerful, the ones who truly shape society, they don't run around. They build the infrastructure. They stand firm. And others come to them not because they love them, but because they need them. Because once you are the source of the essential flow, you don't ask for permission, you decide who gets to drink. This is the fundamental truth Machiavelli taught. The person who controls the dispenser holds the real crown. Kings weren't powerful just because they had gold. They were powerful because they decided who received it and who didn't. The same applies today. You don't need a fancy title. You need to create a system that others depend on, a skill no one else can replace, a structure that feeds others' lives while your hands remain subtly off the visible controls. And here's the trap most people never escape. They want to be liked. They want to be seen. They want to be understood. But the more you crave to be noticed, the more you lose your true ability to lead. Because real power doesn't flow towards the spotlight. It flows towards necessity. Be the one people have to stay close to, not because they adore you, but because you've built something so essential, so life-sustaining, that they can't afford to lose access to your gravity. That's how Machiavelli operated, quietly, precisely, with eyes that saw everything but revealed nothing of his own intentions. Chapter 6. The Allure of the Fake Prize. Which leads us to the sixth rule. Always let them think a full bucket of water is the ultimate prize. This is how you win without a fight.
You offer the bigger pay, you give the impressive title, you create the appearance of success, just enough to keep others busy, running in circles, chasing the visible rewards. Meanwhile, you're studying the land, you're watching the patterns of need, you're building your true leverage behind the scenes. Because the real goal is never the shiny trophy, it's the unseen control of the entire system. Let them cheer for their bonus. You're building the system that distributes all bonuses. Let them brag about their contract. You're the one who writes the contract terms. Let them spend years building their status. You spend that time designing a subtle, unbreakable dependency on your flow. Because what lasts longer than temporary applause? Deep, undeniable need. The person who signs the checks never has to beg. The one who owns the reservoir doesn't ask for a cup. You don't win by being loud. You win by becoming so essential that you are unavoidable. And when they think they've won, when they think the game was just about getting a little more water, climbing a little higher, finding a little validation, you're already beyond their sight. You've disappeared behind the machine. You've become the fundamental condition they build their dreams around. And they won't even realize it until the day you step away, and everything they've built begins to slowly, inevitably crumble. This is how lasting power is born, not through loud charisma or brute force, but through quiet, undeniable gravity. Through systems that don't need praise to work, through a presence so necessary, your very silence becomes a powerful punishment. But we're not done yet, because once you've built this system, what happens when people start to fear losing access to your vital flow? Chapter 7: The Comfort Trap, the Silent Leash. Most people don't just work for water, they work to avoid losing the comfortable life that water allows them to enjoy. This is the hidden lever of control almost no one talks about. Comfort isn't just a reward, it's a subtle leash. Once someone gets used to a certain lifestyle, a predictable rhythm, a stable position, they will bend their beliefs and actions to keep it. Machiavelli didn't need to force people, he just needed to give them something valuable to lose, and then he would step back and observe. This is the 7th rule. Use your control over the water flow to create comfort, then manage the subtle fear of losing it. Not through obvious threats, that's crude, but through your system's design, through strategic silence, a slight delay in a usual delivery, a shift in your attention, a missed invitation. That's all it takes to awaken the fear. Not panic, just the quiet whisper that maybe their comfort is slipping away. And when that whisper grows stronger, people don't argue, they adapt. They become more careful, they start to control their own actions. They obey, often without knowing exactly why they're doing it. This is how Machiavellians truly lead, not with direct commands, but with conditional stability. Give them enough to relax, he might say, but never enough to feel completely secure without your system. Because once someone connects their sense of well-being to what you provide, they stop thinking about fairness. They start thinking about survival. They won't admit it. They'll tell themselves it's a fair exchange, that they've earned their place. But deep down, the fear takes root. What if my water source disappears? And in that silent space, real control is born. The person who provides the comfort doesn't need to shout. They don't need to correct. They become the essential sun around which others revolve.
Not because they are loud, but because they are utterly necessary. And the quieter they are, the more powerful they become. That's the genius of understanding how emotions drive economics. You don't buy loyalty, you create it through subtle dependency. And the more fragile that comfort feels, the tighter people will cling to your presence. But this strategy has an even deeper side. While most people chase immediate pleasure, the Machiavellian studies what makes people uncomfortable. They know that a person will fool themselves for years to avoid losing status, that most would rather go against their own values than give up their comfortable life. So they don't need to fight directly. They just make sure people's stability depends on them, and then they wait. Chapter 8. Money, measured, not admired. Today's world sells a lie, that showing off your full bucket of water earns admiration, that displaying your success will make others truly value you. But Machiavelli knew the exact opposite. When you flaunt your supply, you don't inspire genuine respect, you awaken a cold, calculating eye. People start to judge your choices, look for your weak spots, and figure out your position. The hidden competitor smiles and starts planning how to take your place. Money, to the truly powerful, is not sacred, it's a map for others. And the more of it you show, the easier it is for them to find your vulnerabilities. That's why the wise keep their true strength veiled. Because when no one knows the full size of your reservoir, no one can plan its destruction. The ancient philosopher Marcus Aurelius warned, "It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live." But the Machiavellian adds, "It is not an empty bucket you should fear, but visibility." Because when people know exactly how much water you have, they no longer see you, they see their chance. And the moment you become a shiny symbol of success, you become a target. That's why the true Machiavellian never clings to the water itself. They move like a shadow. They build their reserves, but never become their reserves. Chapter 9. Unshakable without the flow. Which leads to the 9th rule. Become unshakable even if your water supply temporarily dries up. This is the final, toughest test. Most people would panic at the idea of starting over. They fear losing their water not because of the water itself, but because of the identity and lifestyle it gave them. Take away their comfort, their image, their connections, and they feel empty. But the person who no longer fears temporary loss becomes incredibly resilient, because no one can truly take what you're willing to walk away from. And once you operate from this place of calm detachment, of inner strength, you become truly untouchable. You can say no without hesitation. You can walk away from deals that others would fight tooth and nail for. You can let people misunderstand you, underestimate you, even abandon you, and still find peace. Because your sense of power no longer comes from external things, it's internal, it's quiet, it's built on patience, on understanding how to gain an advantage, and on clear thinking. And that clarity makes you incredibly effective. The world bends not to the loudest demands, but to the person who stays calm when everyone else is in a panic. This is the moment when wealth stops being just personal. It becomes structural. You're no longer chasing comfort for yourself. You're designing it for others. You're not begging for attention. You're watching who adjusts their pace when your quiet presence enters the room. And they don't know why, but they feel it. The tension, the pull, the subtle dependence. And when you reach that point, the game completely shifts. You stop playing by the rules because you realize you've become the one who writes them. But there's still one final transformation, because power isn't complete until you've learned to use your control over the flow not just to support others, but to shape the entire story of how they think success works. The final stage is true detachment, not from the water itself, but from needing to use it as a signal to others. The wise don't need to show their vast supply. They design environments where their absence is felt more strongly than their presence, where people adjust their behavior without being told, where quiet strength carries more weight than any amount of gold. Because at the highest level, water is not for showing off. It's for influencing decisions, shifting loyalties, and subtly creating the reality others experience from the hidden depths. Chapter 10. Control the narrative of the flow. Machiavelli never trusted the person who simply had a huge bucket of gold. He watched the one who decided where all that gold went. In simple terms, don't just be a popular person. Be the one who subtly guides all the popular people. You don't need 1 million followers. You need to be the reason why everyone moves in the same general direction. Because when you become the reliable source of essential value, the entire system adjusts to your influence, not because they admire you, but because they absolutely need you. And that's what most people miss. You can have a lot of money and still be easily replaced. But when others' well-being and stability depend on your system, you become an unspoken rule. They'll overlook your faults. They'll praise you. They'll try to guess your moods, not out of loyalty, but out of their own survival. The king didn't command because he was loved. He commanded because he controlled the kingdom's entire budget. Machiavelli understood this deeply. Having an impressive show of power doesn't matter if you don't decide where the money, the water flow, truly goes. But here's where this strategy becomes truly powerful and a bit risky. Once you've built this system, the temptation will rise to explain it, to show the world exactly how you did it, to sell your blueprint. That's exactly how people lose their ultimate control. Chapter 11. Never reveal the blueprint. This is why the 11th and most important rule exists. Never teach them the full design of your system. Let them enjoy the benefits, let them thrive from the steady water flow, but never let them fully understand the hidden pipes, the pumps, and the dam itself. Once they can build their own version, they no longer need your system. And the moment you're no longer needed, you become disposable. This is how many great powers faded, not because they were defeated, but because their secrets were shared too widely. Their knowledge became common, their power spread thin, and the ones who once ruled became just old stories. So, guard your design. Show the amazing results. Let them be amazed. Let them ask, "How did you do that?" Smile. Say nothing specific. Keep your hidden structure protected, because mystery is not just a shield, it makes your influence grow stronger. The more they guess, the more they admire. The more they admire, the more willingly they follow. And the more they follow without knowing why, the deeper their trust and obedience become. Once they believe in your reliable results more than their own instincts, you've crossed a major psychological line. They won't compete with you. They'll naturally stay in your orbit. Not because you ordered it, but because the alternative feels like being cut off from everything essential. That's when you stop being just a person and become a legend. And legends don't need to explain themselves. But Machiavelli went even deeper. He didn't just believe in holding back, he believed in giving, but only when it created subtle, invisible connections. Chapter 12: The Invisible Thread of Giving. Which leads to the 12th rule. When you give, attach threads that no one can see. He didn't give to get loud praise. He gave to create a quiet, unspoken debt. Not just money debt, but an emotional, a deep-seated one. Because when you help someone greatly, at their lowest point, unexpectedly, and generously, without a single word of expectation, they don't just say thank you. They subtly connect their own story, their own identity, to your helpful act. They tell themselves stories about it. They raise you higher in their mind. And in doing so, they unconsciously start to be more careful with their own actions when you're around. They become loyal, not out of fear, but out of a powerful, lasting memory. The strongest sense of obligation is the one that's never spoken, only felt. That's why you give sparingly, with clear intent. And when you do, you rarely repeat the exact favor quickly. Rarity makes things special, and people protect what they believe they might never receive again. This is the final design. Control over resources that doesn't just buy things, but quietly shapes behavior. Influence that doesn't just command, but subtly guides decisions. Generosity that doesn't just help, but creates invisible, strong connections. This is how powerful systems are maintained. Not with force, not with noise, but with 1,000 unseen threads, each one quietly tied to your smart judgment. And when you've built all this, when the quiet strength of your presence carries more weight than any public image, then comes the 13th and final stage. Chapter 13: The Quiet Power of Presence. Build a life where your resources are clearly present, but never loud. The merely rich talk constantly about their wealth. The truly powerful don't need to. They move through any situation like shadows. Their value is simply assumed. Their influence is unspoken. They signed important papers in silence. They leave meetings before big decisions are made, because those decisions were already shaped by their earlier actions, even in their absence. They aren't powerful because they show more, they're powerful because they need less praise. That's the final lesson in mastering financial strategy. You stop chasing applause. You stop trying to signal success. You stop needing to be seen. And instead, you become the unspoken condition that others build their ambitions around. Quiet, deeply grounded, absolutely irreplaceable. You have more than you explain. You influence more than you display. And you carry yourself with the calm certainty of someone who no longer fears failure, because you've already built the solid structure to rise again. No matter what happens, you don't need to prove anything anymore. Not your resources, not your strategies, not your presence. Because when your life is designed to withstand silence, absence, betrayal, and time itself, then you have truly arrived. This is not the end of the journey. It's the beginning of a kind of power few ever touch. Sovereign silence. The kind that doesn't ask, doesn't need, doesn't back down. The kind of strength that moves the world without ever needing to be seen. And once you reach that, you'll never need to chase anything again. The path to becoming this architect of influence, where your resources are a silent, powerful force, is a journey for the truly discerning. If these insights have started to reshape your understanding of money and power, you're ready for true mastery. If this video has changed how you view money and influence, if it has armed you with a new, sharper vision, then hit that like button. Share this crucial message with someone who needs to see these truths. And most importantly, if you are ready to stop being a piece in the game and start becoming the player, Subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell. Join us to keep unlocking the secrets of true, lasting power. Your future self, the one who truly commands their destiny through wisdom and strategy, is waiting. Remember, in a world obsessed with superficial wealth, the person who understands the flow of money rather than just its accumulation holds all the keys.